Today is Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. My name is Tori Otten, and I am the Archival Specialist of the Warren County Record Center and Archives. I'm here with my coworker, Jennifer Baker, the Deputy Archivist for the county. And today we are doing an oral history program on prior employees. If our guest would like to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kelly Walker, and I am retiring after 31 years from the Warren County Recorder's Office and Warren County Map Room.
Thank you very much for being here today. So we can start getting into this now that we have the beginning. So if you would like to share with us, when and where were you born?
I was born in Wilmington, Ohio in March 16th, 1970.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Clinton County until I was about 6, and then my parents moved to Springboro, Ohio.
So have you lived in Springboro your whole life then?
When I first got married, my husband and I moved to Waynesville, and we lived there a couple years, and then we moved back to Springboro and raised our kids there.
Nice. So before you worked at the county, which 31 years, obviously you've been here a while, did you have any jobs prior to working here?
I worked for a local attorney, Kaufman and Florence, here in town.
Okay.
And I was a runner for them. So when I ended up getting hired at the county, I kind of knew a lot of people because I ran and did different things in the different offices, courts, and then recorders, map room, all that. I ran documents and recorded for them.
Interesting. Definitely an interesting process to get you here.
Yeah.
So that was the background question. So now we can start off talking about more of the departmental side of it. So you've already said that you worked at the map room and the recorder's office, but do you have a time frame for when you worked at those?
Yes. So I got hired March 9th, 1992 in the map room, and I worked in the map room for 21 years. And then when Linda Oda became the recorder, I came over and worked for her for the past 10 years in the recorder's office.
And have these departments always been in the same location?
Yes. Well, no. So we were on Justice Street, or what is
Silver Street?
Silver Street, yes. Yes. So Silver Street, both offices were there. So I was in the map room the whole time there. We were connected with the auditor's office, just a really small room. It was crazy. We had, just the maps. There was no mapping on the computers or anything at that time. So it was just the map books out. And we would check all the documents on the maps. The map room at that time checked every document that got recorded. The recorder's office now checks the majority of them, but at that time the map room checked everything. So we would have to go to the maps and look up the legal description, the property on the map.
Wow. So if you're walking in the front door of the courthouse, where was the map room located within the old courthouse?
Okay, so the side door.
Okay.
When you walked in, the recorders was on the right, walking in that hall. And then the map room and auditors was on the left. I believe, I can't think
Is
of
that where the resource room is today?
No.
Okay.
It's the children, I can't think of
That's
it.
okay.
We can come back
I was
just
just
if you think
curious.
about it.
Yeah.
So did you move to this building with the map room when
Yes.
it opened?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you already kind of touched on this a bit, but what were some of the daily tasks and duties that you would have for, let's start with the map room.
Well, at that time, all the plats, like if surveyors would come in or title examiners, we had to go to the recorder's office, get the Mylars, which are now, I think, stored down here.
Yeah.
The, big 24 by 36 Mylars, and we had a blueprint machine, and we would have to run them through that. And it was ammonia, so it stunk up the whole room. It was terrible. But, it would sometimes, some surveyors during the craziness of all the building would come in and just get like 30 plats, And so they would bring them over, and we would just have to run them through these machines. So we recorded the plats, we recorded surveys, and again, it was all on Mylar. There was no maps. At that time, they would update the maps, the tax maps. The Mylars for those were kept at the engineer's office. So Suzanne, that's still in the map room, she would go to the engineer's office a couple times a week, and any new subdivisions that had been recorded or survey splits, she would go there and she would actually ink the Mylars to make them current to the tax maps. So then she would take a book out and she would work on that book for any changes that were made, and then she would ink the Mylars and then make new copies of the pages and bring the book back.
Well, so you kind of touched on this, but like historically, Warren County, I feel like that's when they really started to develop a lot of the neighborhoods that currently exist, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So that was probably a crazy time
It was.
to be in that.
There were
business.
actually two of them that did the inking, and so they would take turns. And so, like if a new subdivision would get brought in or a split, we would do it in red ink in the books, on the paper maps. So they knew when they took that book out there to ink it, anything in red is what they had to add to those Mylars.
And I'm assuming you're taking what was rural farmland and then just,
Yes.
mapping it
Into
for
subdivisions. Yeah. Springboro at that time, was going crazy. A lot of them.
Right.
But yeah, so anything in red we knew was not on the Mylar if they wanted to go get a copy of that Mylar. So then, like I said, they would ink them, make new copies, and put it in the books.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy to think back on that stuff.
Yeah.
I was saying a few minutes ago that when all that development was going on, again, everything in red, it was not on the Mylar. So appraisers would get, a call to go appraise this property of this new subdivision. Well, they had no clue where the subdivision was because it wasn't on any map and there was no GPS. So they would call the map room, and we literally would have to go to the map and tell them, like, okay, now you want to go here and you're going to turn right on this road. And we'd tell them the name of the road. Then you're going to go up, because the subdivision was there at that time. It just wasn't on anything. It wasn't on any maps. So we would describe to them how to get to these properties. And then they'd be like, oh, okay, I'm here. And that was, luckily, cell phones were around. We had, at the time, in the map room, we didn't have cordless phones. So we had these phones that literally had cords that were like 30 feet. And daily, that phone would get pulled off and it'd be like, boom, and you'd hear, sorry, because you were trying to stretch it so far to get to whatever book you needed to get to look, to give the information.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there was not GPS while you were in the map room. Did that transition in technology also take place?
The GIS department was created when I was in the map room.
What was that like?
It was very, very new. So, there were, one or two people. And I think when they first started the GIS department, they were back where the prosecutors was in that old house behind the building on Silver Street.
Okay. I think I know where you're talking
So,
about.
It's the one on the backside of the parking lot, I think.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did people embrace those technological
No, it was
changes?
it was a long time until anything really. We knew that they were working on it, and we were like, "What is it?"
I know.
But it was a long time before it was ever used.
Did you guys get to hear a lot of complaints from the public then that it was like a shift was happening?
No, not
That's
really.
good.
No, I don't recall that.
Do you know who worked in the GIS department?
Bob
initially?
Casella,
Okay.
and he has passed away. His wife, Ann, I think may still work for the engineer's office. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And then Dawn Johnson came and took it over, but I think Dawn, I don't think she was here until we were in this building.
Okay.
And that's really when it started taking off.
Just for clarity, the map room, what department is it technically under?
So the map room is under the engineer's office.
Okay, has it always been?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's it's basically called the tax map department.
Okay.
So the auditors gets their tax information as far as the land, not the buildings, from the map room.
Oh.
And so in Warren County we have what's called the Sidwell system. And that was created in 79, so it was prior to me. So every piece of property in Warren County is given a Sidwell number, which I kind of try to describe it to people as basically it's a social security number for that property. So anything that gets recorded in Warren County, whatever legal description it is, has that parcel number on it. So then if you came in and you were like, well, I want to know what's going on this piece of property, you type in that Sidwell number and everything comes up. So deeds and mortgages, assignments of mortgages, releases of mortgages, the documents would come into our office and we had to put the parcel number on each document according to the legal description and then approve it. And then
I knew the process was extensive,
yeah.
But here
and then it would go to the recorder's office to get recorded. But any transfer docs like deeds, after we would approve them, they would go to the auditor's office, and then the auditor just would transfer them, like transfer the deed, and then they would come to the recorders to get recorded.
So I'm assuming that's why the map room is located in the administration building,
yes,
as opposed to being located with the engineers.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So,
and I don't know if in other counties. I think in other counties, actually, I think the map room is sometimes under the auditor's office.
Okay.
Not quite sure why it's under the engineers, but it is.
So say that you take some of these farmlands and someone decides to develop them and turn them into separate plots. I honestly don't know the difference. But so say that you start with that process and then the house is built and this and that and it's sold off to another person. How lengthy is that process for you to be passed around amongst all these departments to get it officially recorded?
So let's say this farmer decides he wants to, divide his property up. He has to go to the planning department, whether it's Warren County Planning or the different municipalities, and get their planning first that they're allowed to do this. And then they would hire a surveyor. The surveyor would do all the work. Then it comes into the map room. In the map room also, each parcel that is split out, usually they have like a meets and bounds description, or you'll see like north 24, you know what I'm saying? Though each of those parcels has to close within 0.02 feet. So I used to, part of my job in the map room was I would what we called run closure on those to make sure that the surveyors had everything so it was pinpointed right to that. So you go through all that process of getting the plat recorded. It would come into the map room first. At that point, let's say it was a 10-acre parcel. The way the Sidwell system in Warren County works is, like I said, each parcel has its own social security number. So let's say that parcel number was for this 10 acres. So when this plat comes in, now you have 20 lots. So the map room assigns what's called a new parcel number. So they have the old number, which is what it was when it was 10 acres. And then they have all these new numbers. And then they may have even a remainder number. So maybe only 7 acres was platted. So you have old and then all the new numbers and then the remainder. So we would assign the parcel numbers and then it would go to the auditors. They would transfer them all and then go to the recorders and that's when they are officially created, is once they're recorded in the recorder's office. And then they can sell them off once they're created. And so then once they're sold off, a new deed would be created for, say, lot 20 of Springbrook subdivision, let's just say. So a new deed would be created. The lot is already created because the plat recording creates that lot. And then it would go to the auditors to get transferred from the farmer who developed it to the new owner, then to the recorders. If that makes sense.
It does. It's just, oh my gosh.
No, and that is still how it still happens. It's just a lot more technology used in doing it. Because like I said, that was when they would go out and do all the inking and stuff on the tax maps.
So did technology speed up the process?
Extremely.
Okay. I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah, almost too much on days. I mean, honestly, it's so efficient now, especially in the recorders.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that, but.
Well, in that case, what do you do in the recorder's office?
So in the recorder's office, we record all the deeds and mortgages. Used to, like I said, the map room checked all the legals. I don't even remember, probably 15 years ago or so, when it was just crazy booming, the map room just got slammed. So I believe at that time the recorder's office started checking like releases of mortgages, because it was kind of something that they didn't necessarily have to look at the map to do. Because it was like they were looking at the prior legal description of what was being recorded. So the map room started checking the releases to help, not the map room, I'm sorry, the recorders. So we would check the legal descriptions, put the parcel number on them, and then record them. Over time, now basically all the map room checks is the transfer docs. So the recorders, we check all the, legal descriptions and put the parcel numbers on all the documents that are getting recorded, except for transfer docs, which are deeds. And then we record them, we enter them into the system. What's really changed in there is we're now online. So used to, we would have stacks of documents that would get recorded that people would bring in, paper documents, and, hand write the numbers on them. I would say 80 to 90% of the documents now come in through e-recording. So we don't even have the paper documents in our office anymore. Used to, in the map room or the recorders, they had certain people, that would record, and then it could take up to 2 to 3 weeks for people to get their documents mailed back to them because they have to go through this check process. Today, the people get their documents back that day because they're e-recorded. So we have a, multiple person check on the documents that we do. Now the transfer docs, they come into us first. And then once we do the page count, we make sure that all the requirements are there for us as far as who the document was prepared by, the notary, to make sure all that's there. Then we send it to the map room. Then they check it and approve the legal description. Then they send it to the auditors. The auditors transfers it. And again, this is all online now. And then it comes back to us and we record it. So, and then the paper documents, which are very few, there's still some older attorneys that don't like change. They still either bring in their documents or mail them in. And anybody in our office can do it, but there's particularly one person that does the mail now because there's not much.
Yeah.
And again, the transfer doc, she still takes to the map room, they check them, and then we walk them over to the auditor's office. And then they'll usually go back out the next day in the mail to those people, which again, literally it was sometimes 3-4 weeks before they would get back because just all the checks. So to say technology has helped, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree, it's like I said, sometimes we're like, okay, now what,
Yeah.
Because it's very efficient, and we don't hardly used to when I first started working the recorders and in the map room. Literally, there would be anywhere from 10 to 15 title examiners in the recorder's office daily. There were some people that were only do Warren County work. So those title examiners, it was like they were county employees. They really weren't, but they came to work here every day. We would have, our Christmas parties and stuff, and they would be included because they were in our office every single day. And now we don't see them anymore. So that's really sad to me.
So we're talking about technological changes. You were in the recorder's office during the COVID pandemic. Yes. So I'm assuming some of those changes were really driven home during that time?
Yes. We started just e-recording releases first. And then I believe it was before COVID, we started recording everything online, but not as many people used it. And then at that point, we went home to work, and our office literally never shut down for one day during COVID. A couple of them were in here at all times, a couple of the supervisors, and then we all worked from home for a while. So literally we never got an extra day off for COVID. And then it's just, the title examiners can do their searches online now. So we just don't see any people.
Yeah.
So that's really hard.
We used to get title examiners occasionally come down here.
Right.
But even still, maybe one every couple months now. And it's always some very unique situation that brings them back.
Right. So, and the good thing about COVID is, I do work from home 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. Before this technology, you just couldn't have. You could not have. But now, so the people at home work on recording the documents that come in on e-recording, and and the auditor's office also has someone that works from home. So we're recording the documents. They're going from our office to the map room to the recorder or auditors, and then to the recorders. But typically, it's the people at home that do that work.
Okay. So. Well, you've already said some things that obviously we did not know about your role, but do you have anything that you could say that people would not know about your roles at either the map room or the recorder's office?
I can't think of anything. I probably pretty much covered
it. You've done an amazing job. I've learned so much today.
Thank you.
So in that regard, the map room versus the recorder's office, was there a change in how you interacted with the public, or do you interact with the public more at one office versus the other?
At the time, it was pretty much the same because the title examiners were in the map room all the time too. Mm-hmm. I think even nowadays, if a title examiner has a difficult examination, they still like to look at those paper maps. Mm-hmm. Which they're hand drawn, and it's the same thing now. They put the changes on the paper maps. The only thing is they're not updating the Mylars anymore. Oh. Mm-hmm. So they do the updates on the computer, but they also do it on their paper maps, those big books. Yeah. They just don't keep the Mylars, inking them. So, but we had title examiners in there all the time, and in our office, the auditor's office. They just were, like I said, anywhere from 10 to 15 a day. And now we may see one person come in our office once a week.
So you've obviously worked with a lot of amazing people in 31 years. Is there anybody, be it coworker, manager, otherwise, that you think has really had an impact on you?
My first boss in the map room, Homer Hendrickson, he was just an amazing boss. He was a great guy. I've worked with, like you said, a lot of great people, but when I first got hired, during my interview, I was hired by Rick Pendleton, the county engineer at that time. And at the interview, he asked me if there was anything else, and I said, well, one more thing, I'm pregnant. So I was pregnant with my first son at the time, and, I didn't know how that would go, and Homer was just great. And he was always like, he always was like, if your kids need something, because, I was in his office when my kids were small, and he would hear me talking on the phone to one of my kids, and and he'd be like, is everything okay? Do you need to leave? He was just, it was nice. And I'm sure, my current boss would have been the same way, but my kids were little when I had him, and he was just, it was nice. Yeah.
We'll have to look more into him. I think you're the first person who's ever said that name to me. So
yeah.
He sounds wonderful.
He was in the map room for a long time.
So are there any memorable projects you got the experience of working on over the years?
I would say the GIS. I did some stuff with them, but honestly, the conversion to the e-recordings, even though it's not slowed things down, made things go so much faster in our office, and sometimes we're like, okay, now what? Because things have slowed down too right now with the economy, with the interest rates, of course. I'm sure they'll pick up, hopefully they will, for everyone in there. But I just couldn't even imagine it when Linda first started talking about doing e-recordings. I'm like, what? So, it has been really neat to see that come to fruition or whatever. That.
Well, in that regard, if it's, say, when it comes to the housing market, if it is a buyer's market versus seller, are you much busier during that time frame?
Yes, more so if the interest rates are low.
So with refinancing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because,
So the first year of COVID must have been very busy for all of you.
We were slammed.
I
Slammed.
I feel like everybody I knew was out there refinancing or buying a house.
Yeah. So if you refinance, you figure you're getting a new mortgage come in, and then you're getting a release of mortgage come in. So over time. Yeah. So we were slammed when we were first at home, and even came back in the office. We were slammed. Yes.
So refinancing is almost double work for you guys.
Yeah, but we welcome it because we would much rather, I think, be busy doing that kind of stuff than
Well, in general, you've answered our questions on your particular department, so we are going to move on to broader questions about the county as a whole.
Okay.
So we've spoken of your memorable projects you were on. Are there any big highlights of your time with the county in general?
Moving to this building was huge. The map room was, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the size it is now, literally. We were all in just one room, and it was open to the auditor's office. Mm-hmm. There were filing cabinets that divided the two. I was talking the other day, I can remember when I first started working at the county, we were allowed to, not me, I didn't, but they were allowed to smoke in the buildings. And literally, you're in that close, and I can remember just some of the ladies in the auditor's office smoking at their desk. And at the time, you didn't think anything about it. But now it's like, oh my goodness, because you walk in somewhere, I'm not a smoker, so I walk in somewhere and I'm like, oh, it smells. But literally, they sat at their desk and smoked. And it was crazy.
I don't think I realized you were the first person who has ever mentioned that to us.
It's just weird, but yeah, moving to this new building, now it's not new, but it still looks new. This was huge. This was we just felt like we were in this, mansion. Yeah, and it is a very nice building.
It is. So, what was the county like in general when you started versus now that you're leaving?
Just the technology has changed it so much. The housing market, when I first started working, it wasn't as crazy. Mm-hmm. I know other people that worked in the map room, they would say they would get a split, which was, when someone would split a piece of farmland, whether it be 1 acre out or a subdivision, they would get a split maybe one every 2 weeks or so. When I was in the map room in the prime, we would just have splits all the time. And then there were different periods of time with the economy, that sheriff sales were a big thing too. And the map room did a lot for the sheriff sales. We would have to look the properties up, get property cards for them. The county had appraisers that would go out and appraise the property for the sheriff's sales. We would have to hand draw maps for the appraisers on how to get to these properties again, to go out to appraise the property for the sheriff's sale. And there were times, sadly, that, we would have stacks of sheriff's sales like this when the economy, But I think sheriff sales have definitely slowed down over the years. Hopefully they'll stay down for people. But that's something else we did, and that's changed a lot over the years.
So did anything significant happen within the county government during your time? So we've had people in the past say COVID was obviously a big event that happened.
It was.
9/11 was
9/11.
impactful for a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what that was like here? Were you in this building at the time?
I was. I do remember. I just remember the day. That's when Homer was the supervisor in the map room. We had a little black and white TV up there. And I don't know, Homer had brought it in years ago. It was a lot more laid back then, probably to watch basketball tournaments or something. I don't really know. It usually wasn't on, but I can remember turning that on when we heard. And obviously my mom was calling me because my daughter was just starting kindergarten, and she was like, should I send her to school? And at that time, I'm like, I don't know. And I just remember watching it. It was, it's very eerie, but I can remember when the second plane, we actually had that little TV on and was watching it when that happened. So, that was definitely very impactful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some important things that you have learned while working for Warren County?
I've always just tried to do my best and put my time in, work hard when I'm here. I've raised 3 kids. I always, at the time, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but couldn't afford it. But I always made sure my kids knew that they came first, but also I had a job to do. And, leaving in the mornings, sometimes it was like difficult. Like, no, you've got to do this because I can't be late. I've always tried to be a good employee, be honest, put my hours in, and not always agreed with stuff that went on, but just, that was my job and I had to do it. And I was fine with doing it because that's what I was getting paid to do. So.
Fair enough. So you're obviously going to leave here very shortly next week.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have anything you think you're going to miss about being here?
I'll miss the people. But again, since COVID, we don't even hardly see the other people in the other offices. So it's sad. Mm-hmm. And only half of us work at a time in the office. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple girls in my office that I never work with. We are on teams together. Mm-hmm. But I will miss the people. But it seems like that's kind of been gone for the last couple years.
Yeah.
Even people in the building, you just never see anymore. You know how it is.
Empty a lot of days.
Yeah, it is. And it's just, that's very different. So, I'll miss that. I've got 5 grandkids under the age of 5. So,
are you going to watch them?
I'm not going to babysit every day. Don't plan on doing that, but hopefully spend lots of time with them. Yeah.
Well, we are on to our last question then.
Okay.
What advice would you give current employees?
Just work hard. Do what you're supposed to do. that's just my motto. It's just the type of person I am that, you know, and if you're unhappy, then do something else. But just if you're committed and you're going to be an employee here, then be committed and do what you're supposed to do. So.
Okay. Well, do you have any last thoughts or anything else you would like to add?
So it's fun. I
Yeah.
never ever thought I'd be here 31 years. I can remember some of the older ladies in the day when I was younger, and they would be like, "Oh, you know," and there's no way I'll ever be here. And it's like that. And honestly, it's gone fast. It's gone so fast. It's crazy. So.
Well, in that regard, we thank you for your time and for speaking with us today.
Oh, no problem.
And at this point, I am going to conclude the interview.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.